From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
The race to plant in Arkansas has slowed.
Seems like everybody's behind at something.
The latest on what has some producers behind the eight ball. We have the latest snapshot on the winter wheat crop as harvest gets underway. As new concerns grow about cases of H5N1 in dairy cattle.
Some herds have been reporting that, and that's resulted in some culling or maybe even some death losses in some cases.
The latest on what we know about the virus as more cases are reported right now on AgDay.
AgDay, presented by Pioneer. What's next happens when the testing grounds meet the proving grounds. Pioneer. What's next happens here.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. While most dairy cows infected with avian flu do recover, a new report says some are dying or are being slaughtered due to secondary infections. Now, Reuters is reporting cows infected with H5N1 in 5 states either died from the virus or were culled because they did not recover from it. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins me with the very latest on this developing story. Michelle.
Well, Clinton, USDA has reported H5N1 has now infected dairy cows in more than 80 herds across 11 states, and those death losses indicate the economic toll could be greater than initially thought. However, officials tell me it isn't anything like the mass culling in the poultry industry, and they don't expect it to get to that level. The percentage of dairy cows that have died from H5N1 is small. However, animal health officials in South Dakota confirm a 1,700 head dairy culled a dozen animals that didn't recover from the virus and another dozen that contracted secondary infections after the flu weakened their immune system.
Some herds have been reporting that, and that's resulted in some culling or maybe even some death losses in some cases. And it's hard to put a percentage and a number on that.
However, Daly once again stressed that the dairy cows aren't directly dying from H5N1.
The flu itself is not killing the animals, but it's the problems that happen because of the flu that I mentioned earlier, the secondary pneumonias, the digestive problems, those other infections.
In fact, the large majority of herds are reporting infected lactating dairy cows experience a fever, lost appetite, and a drop in milk production, but then quickly recover.
That is one thing that is amazing. I mean, it's kind of like you and I getting the flu. 2-3 days, we don't feel quite right, but a few days later, we're back into the milking string. We're back out in the barn with all the other cows and producing milk.
It does seem like after they get through it, they'll see a 10 to 20% loss of milk production when it's in their herd. But once they get through it, things start to come back to normal.
So while HPAI is having an economic impact on herds, they're not concerned the illness will reach pandemic levels. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. And the virus is continuing to spread, as Michelle said, now to 11 states, with Iowa and Minnesota confirming their first cases. The Iowa case is reported in a dairy herd in O'Brien County. Iowa's Ag Secretary saying poultry producers and dairy farmers should immediately take steps to harden their biosecurity defenses, limit unnecessary visitors, and report symptomatic birds or cattle to the state. Iowa has about 850 dairy farms that range in size from 25 to 10,000 cows, while in Minnesota, a case is confirmed in a Benton County dairy herd with more than 40 cows reported to have signs of fever. And so far, APHIS has confirmed more than 84 cases in dairy herds, with new cases also reported in Texas, Idaho, South Dakota, and Michigan. And as the U.S. deals with H5N1 in dairy cattle and a couple of human cases, the World Health Organization has announced the first known human infection with a different strain, H5N2, in a 59-year-old resident of Mexico. And that person has died of complications of their infection, and they had several pre-existing conditions. The source of the person's infection is unknown, although WHO noted H5N2 viruses had been reported in poultry there in Mexico. The organization saying the risk to the general public from H5N2 is low, since other H5 subtypes are known to infect humans, but none has been shown to cause sustained human-to-human spread. And apparently the world hasn't seen the last of African swine fever. Germany confirming a case has been confirmed on a pig breeding farm in Greifswald. China and other countries banned imports of German pork back in 2020 after an ASF outbreak in the country, and China's import ban remains in place. Some good news about the nation's winter wheat crop this year. The latest USDA crop progress report showing that 83% of the crop nationally has headed, and that's 5% ahead of average.
We do see, as expected, with the rapid development of the crop, most areas seeing ahead of average harvest progress in this first report of the season. Nationally, we are at 6% harvested. That's twice the 5-year average pace of 3% and last year's 3%.
Now, 49% of the crop is rated in good to excellent condition, and now 94% of the spring wheat crop has been planted well ahead of average. A brutal heat dome is sending temperatures to dangerous levels in California and other states out west. It's the first significant heat wave of the year, and it's not even quite summer yet. And conditions are dangerous for people who work outside. It means the staff at Chippenary Family Farms in Turlock, California, must end their day early before high temperatures cook the region.
It's quite hot now. At what point do you guys call it?
I think today, right after lunch, right after about noon, we're going to call it a day.
Excessive heat warnings were issued with temperatures rising into the triple digits, while in El Paso, Texas, residents are under heat advisories and urged to stay indoors during peak hours as cooling centers pop up around the city. While in Las Vegas, there were warning signs for anyone outdoors to head for shade or water. A break from the heat may be on the way for many places in the west in the form of rain. Meteorologist Martin Lorimore joins us with an update.
Yeah, it has been pretty warm, and unfortunately, with the new drought monitor, some places, while they did get better, other places, not so much, Clinton. So let's take a look at the drought monitor. Again, we can see places out toward parts of Florida, places that not necessarily on the drought monitor very often, now sitting in the severe drought. And as we move closer toward areas that have been plagued by not a whole lot of rainfall for this past couple of months, a lot of New Mexico still sitting underneath that very extreme drought, and in some areas exceptional drought. A little bit of regression in the drought in parts of western Kansas with a little bit of the rainfall we've had past couple of weeks, which is a good thing. Hopefully get some of that winter wheat. But unfortunately, we're not watching that heat dome going away for the next couple of days. It will start degrading as we head into our weekend, noticing these lines moving their way southward into our Saturday and Sunday, but the low is going to be pushing it across the nation. And by the time we get into our next work week, be looking at that high pressure starting to build its way in toward the eastern part of the country. So the west got their heat this week. East is going to be getting it next week. All the details in just a little bit. And here's someone looking for a friend. This is adorable right here. Christia Simmons of Oklahoma sharing this video saying this little guy really wants to be friendly, but the big girls, they won't allow it. You can see Mama right there keeping a close eye. She is also very beautiful still. Well, more on the forecast coming up.
Continuing our Pork Week coverage, there was a lot of optimism about pork exports during World Pork Expo in Des Moines, Iowa this week. One reason for the strength, EU's pork production taking a big hit, down 3 million metric tons in just 2 years. That's as much pork as the U.S. exports in an entire year. Now, as we've been reporting, pork exports in the first quarter of this year climbed 6%. Some of that, according to one industry expert, is due to the sharp drop in Europe's pork production, which fell to the smallest level in 25 years.
When you look around the world at what's happened, there have been some major shifts in recent years, one with our major competitor, Europe. And some of those regulations, we can go into detail on that further, but there have been some regulatory changes that have really caused them to step back from the global markets, which has provided a real in for U.S. pork in a lot of these key markets.
Now, the EU is also dealing with ingredient supply chain problems and increased input costs that caused EU's pork production to fall nearly 3 million metric tons from its peak back in 2021. It was a turnaround Thursday for soybeans, but a mixed day for livestock. We'll talk markets with Michelle Rook coming up next. And later, we'll hop on the roller coaster of planting season with a farmer in Arkansas. His story in the country. We're learning more about layoffs at some John Deere locations in Iowa. The Iowa Workforce Development listing several warn notices for the company, recently including 192 jobs at a plant in Waterloo, 16 from the Ankeny location, 58 from Deere's Intelligent Solutions in Urbandale, and another 49 from the Waterloo location. Now, additional layoffs were announced in April and May. So far, 773 layoffs have been reported to the state this year. The company employs 70,000 people worldwide. Smithfield Foods is announcing it's buying a plant from Cargill. The plant is located in Nashville, Tennessee. Smithfield saying it's a premier dry sausage production facility, adding it will fuel its strategy of continued growth in the value-added packaged meat segment by enhancing its ability to serve the growing demand for pepperoni, deli, and charcuterie. Terms of the deal aren't being disclosed, but the deal is expected to be completed by the end of next month. After several days in a slump, soybeans roared back to life on Thursday thanks to some gains in soy oil. As Michelle Rook tells us in Markets Now, that also helped fuel a rally in corn.
A nice rally in corn and soybeans on Thursday. John Payne with Advanced Trading is back with analysis. So corn and soybeans, like I said, some double-digit gains. Was that technical, short covering? I mean, we did have about 7 down days there, John.
Yeah, it's been pretty ugly, really going back to late April. So I would consider it short covering, although there are some bullish tailwinds in regards to news. We announced some sales this morning to, I believe, to Europe. Spain was a buyer, and then we also had some rumors of China buying corn. And the weather in Northeast Asia is not great right now. So the Chinese could certainly be having weather problems. I find it difficult to trade on Chinese weather news, but if that's what's going to rip the market higher, I think that's the case.
So the rally in corn and soybeans got us back up into some chart resistance again. How difficult will it be to get above those areas now?
Well, there's still a gap on the D's at 503, and I'm sure every technical analyst knows that. For me, that would be the target if you're looking to sell. I think at this point, volatility's come down quite a bit, actually, relative to where it was just 4 weeks ago. Some of these options have cheapened up a little bit as the U.S. crop's in the ground. So, I think there's a chance to buy some upside protection, but if you're undersold, I don't think it's worth it. I think you've got to be willing to be early. Unfortunately, that price could be 470.
So are you thinking this is just a one-day pop?
I think that the market really has to figure out a way to deal with the new supply coming online, combined with a pretty big carryover. I had a really good conversation this week with a guy who kind of pointed out, he's like, a year ago we were merging carryovers from kind of a broke situation, and then all of a sudden I got a paycheck. So the market kind of had to ration a little bit more early in the session, but now we have kind of 2 years building on itself in the case of soybeans as well, where you're going to see this carryover growth, and how does that kind of merge in September time period? And that's really where I think the hedges need to go up front, and then assume that if the market doesn't break, those spreads will hold in, and maybe we have bottomed here.
Thanks for joining us, John Payne with Advanced Trading, and we'll have more AgDay coming up. Watch Markets Now with Michelle Rook on the Farm Journal YouTube channel, keeping you updated throughout the day on the markets at the open, midday, and close. Find out what moved the markets today and what to expect the market to do next.
Welcome back, and no shocker here, it's still hot across most of the country, seeing 90s stretching the way into areas that they really shouldn't be getting into this early in the summer, or really not even started summer yet, honestly. But we got places up toward the west in Portland, 87, Salt Lake City at 93, Rapid City in South Dakota, 83 degrees, and even Denver, Mile High City, more like the Mile High City when it comes to the thermometer. It is warm out there. Got hundreds in Amarillo as well, in places like New Orleans, Jacksonville sitting in the hundreds. Now, as we get into our overnight, we're still not looking at much of that relief into our overnight, with temperatures in the 70s. Even in the Mojave, you can see Phoenix 84 as the low. Not exactly a good relief there, but as we get into tomorrow, more the same. Got triple-digit temperatures reaching all the way up into Oklahoma. Tulsa at 102. It's going to be a warm one there. And with that high pressure out toward the west, we're seeing very little rainfall making its way in toward that area. Now, as we get to the next week or so, we'll start seeing that breaking down as we head into our next 7 days. So the high pressure is going to be kind of skirting itself underneath and then pulling itself back up into the eastern portion of the nation. So there will still be a little bit of rainfall around the central and southern plains. But again, areas that have not seen a whole lot of that rainfall past couple of days and months, Fortunately, not going to be seeing much more this next week. There will be a chance for a handful of rumbles of thunder trying to get on the stronger side. The severe storm risk staying pretty low for the next couple of days, but still staying in that inner area in the Central Plains. So there's that high pressure right there, that heat dome. It will start fading its way into Mexico as we get into our weekend, giving us a little bit of relief. But as we get into our next week, noticing already starting to rebuild its way back up into the central and eastern parts of the country. We'll be seeing those temperatures reaching toward the 90s and possibly even triple digits across those parts of the countries later on near a Father's Day weekend. Rawlins, Wyoming, it's going to be a hot one, high 81 degrees, partly cloudy skies. Belle Glade, Florida, 92 and thunderstorms. And finally, Newport, Virginia, that's Vermont. All right, I'm going to do cities in 3, 2, 1. Rawlins, Wyoming, it's a nice one, a little warm, high 81 degrees, partly cloudy. Belle Glade, Florida, 92. It is going to be warm and humid. And one of the few places not too hot, Newport, Vermont, high 74.
Some smart innovations for farmers are rolling out. We'll preview a few of the newest innovations next. And later, it's been a season of ups and downs for one Arkansas farmer working to get his fields planted. We'll hear his story in the country. John Deere is introducing a new combine. Check out the new T6 800 Walker Combine. The company says it offers operators increased harvesting performance and an optimized operator experience. It includes features from the X9 and S7 series, along with integrated precision ag technology, including a larger, quieter cab, as well as an increased unloading rate and improved efficiency. Now, the unloading speed at peak performance claims to be 10 tons of grain in just 90 seconds. A new mode of action herbicide for pre-emergence use in corn is effective. That's according to researchers looking into Bayer's diflufenacan. In North America, it's under the trade name of Convintro. It can be used against water hemp. A research team in Canada reporting in the journal Weed Technology saying the product has demonstrated its effectiveness, adding it could prove critical as part of an integrated weed management water hemp control strategy in Canada and the U.S. The product's approval is still pending for use in corn and soybeans by the EPA. And the folks over at T-Jet Technologies just announcing a new electromagnetic flow meter. The brand new design has no moving parts, requires no maintenance, and has no risk of clogging. It works with any conducting fluid, meaning it's unaffected by temperature, density, viscosity, concentration, and electrical conductivity. The FM 9380 meter can operate from 0.6 gallons per minute up to 100 gallons per minute and up to 100 psi. You can find more information over at tjet.com. Field work has been difficult in some parts of the country this spring. Up next, a trip to Arkansas, where one farmer is working hard to get things planted in the country. Many producers in Arkansas had a fast start to the planting season, but in the northeast part of the state, farmers have been slowed by waterlogged fields. The Arkansas Farm Bureau spoke with one producer who's been able to navigate the consistent rains better than some.
Right now, currently, we like just cutting our wheat and planting the beans back. We had a really dry, early spring, perhaps a little too early. And then after that, it set in raining and seemed like it's kind of delayed everybody. It went from one extreme to the other. It seemed like everybody thought we were going to get ahead, and then now it's kind of everybody's falling behind. Seems like some places are worse than others. I've got neighbors, like I said, that they haven't even planted a bean yet, but they've hit more rain. But I've got rice fields now that rice is that tall now, I can't even get the levees up in them. It seems like everybody's behind at something. And, you know, some people may have put into planting beans and behind on levees, or did their levees and behind on the beans, but it has basically delayed us all. I mean, we still have the potential for a crop. Everybody needs to be able to finish. To me, the rice that got planted and it's got the levees in it, it looks great. I mean, you couldn't ask for prettier rice, but we just need a gap to finish. I mean, you hate to wish rain away, but you kind of like to have just a little bit of window. The good Lord let us finish. You know, just east of here, there's some guys that hasn't planted a bean. and they're hurting. And bless their heart, I mean, they've gotten rain after rain after rain. It just seems like if you're in that path, you've been in that path. I mean, it's just down here, I mean, we have the ability to make a crop because of irrigation, but the cost, I mean, we have to make a crop. There's no room for error, none. That's the best way I could put it.
And our thanks to the Arkansas Farm Bureau for sharing that story with us. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.